There we go. Alright guys, thank you for tuning in. This is PiG Daily episode number 3. And about, less than 8 hours ago, the DreamHack Spring Championship Finals at 2 is finished. Spoilers, Showtime did end up winning 4-3 against Nerchio in the finals. But right before that, that was such a damn good finals. But right before that, there was an epic semi-final match between Nerchio and Polt. I don't know if it was the most epic back and forth, but it was epic in that Nerchio, who lost 0-3 to Polt in reasonably decisive games at the last championship in Katowice, came back and just 3-0'd Polt. And to some extent, he made certain parts of the game just look easy. So that's what we're going to be analyzing today, his whole style of just defending with Ravagers and all that sort of stuff. And ooh, I got text messages about my groceries being delivered to my house. Shut up, phone. But yeah, basically we're just going to be doing Ravagers, Zergling, teching to Ultras. It's a style we've seen a lot of, but I think there's a lot of small specific things Nerchio does, and he's especially just adept at defending the Marine tank pushes that hit right before the Ultras pop out. So let's dive on into replay and take a look. So here we go. Alright, so this is game 1. We're going to go through the whole series today. As you know, the games just happened last night. I've only had a chance to look over the replays briefly. We're not kind of going into any deep sort of theory talk. We are going to be looking at just the fundamental reasons why this play is so strong, and we're going to be identifying all of the small things that Nerchio does right. Now, before we even dive into it, let's go down to a nice dark corner of the map so you guys can see this build order I've written on the left-hand side. So this is pretty much the opening he uses in most of the games down here. Take a screenshot or pause the video over there if you're watching on YouTube. I'll show that a bit later as well. But let me turn that off so that's off the screen. So in terms of the build order, Nerchio does quite a typical opening. He does come out with his first drone a little bit early, just scouts around to see if there's any SCV coming in to block his natural or anything crazy like some proxy barracks right there, and just goes for his hatch first. From there, he's going to be going gas and then spawning pool. So it's 17 hatch, 18 gas, 17 pool. Very, very typical play, nothing too crazy. If we look at his overlord paths, Nerchio likes guaranteed information. He doesn't like to take any risks with his overlord. So his first overlord, this one, paths straight to this little piece of dead ground here. All it can really do there is check the natural, but Nerchio is happy. That's all he really wants. His other overlord goes straight down along the edge of the map, where Marines are very unlikely to find it, and then gets in position over here where it can poke into the main and have a little bit of scouting later on. Now the Reaper came in and just kind of ran around. It did force him to build a Spore Crawler to save one of his drones. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, so he just saves one of his drones by throwing that into a Spore Crawler, obviously having more hit points, and as soon as the Reaper's chased off, he's going to cancel that. This is a very small map. Reapers are very strong here, so there's a few really small but very awesome things which Nerchio does here, and something which makes a big difference. We saw a laser versus Polt, for instance, sometimes have his natural denied, his third base denied for a very long time. Nerchio doesn't want that to happen. He loves to take a nice fast third, often before his third queen even starts. So notice in the midst of this action, you're watching the Reaper. He slipped this drone out. One of his drones that was rallying down from his ramp, he just grabbed it, sent it to his third base. He said, look, while the Reaper's distracted, let's do that, because once I push the Reaper back, he's between me and my third base, and he can just stand there, block it, snipe down the drone. But because Nerchio is just distracting him with these Zerglings, he can plant that hatchery down ASAP, super fast, and be in a really good spot. That's a very, very nice adjustment from Nerchio. I really like that. Sixlings as well. Any small map, you should always make sixlings. If you're not playing the highest level players with the best Reaper micro, maybe you can get away with only 4. But you should always build at least 4 Zerglings every single ZvT. Now, he does leave one guy on gas. He pulls the other 2 off immediately after getting 100 gas to start Zergling speed. And from here, he just drones, gets his overlord after that hatchery, and only after he's spending all his lava on drones does he start his third queen here. So he doesn't rush that third queen at all. Keep in mind, the first queen on the natural, after she does her first inject, always spreads a creep tumor. Almost every single ZvT build does this. because you very rarely are going to be able to spend all your lava. Notice we've always got a couple lava sitting there, and yet we don't have any minerals. So having one earlier inject on this natural would not help us at all. Now we've put back on gas at 3 minutes 30. 3 minutes 40 we've got a roach warren. You'll see this across all pro gamers. In ZvT, it's always a 3 minute 40 roach warren. The reason is that takes 40 seconds to build, which means it'll be done at 4 minutes 20. And the reason that's an important timing is 4 minutes 40 is when the first very scary Terran attacks can start hitting you. A Hellbat timing with Marines and a medevac, all sorts of things like that. Even Widowmine drops start hitting around then. Yeah, basically those are the two big ones, but also like very light tank drop +8 Marines can hit as well. So being able to get your roaches out is very important, and Nerchio takes no risks on this. Nerchio always builds 6 or 7 roaches every single game, no matter what's happening. His early queens, yes, they can defend, but at this point, especially if 2 more Hellions came across the map, the queens would start to just lose that fight. They don't have enough energy for transfuse. Nerchio doesn't like to rely on saving energy for transfuse. He doesn't get his queens up early enough, so he relies on these roaches for that defense. Now, this is really cool because this build is so solid. So what we want to look at here is, what about his information? If we go back, a lot of players will try to sacrifice an Overlord at 4 minutes 30. However, Nerchio, with his Overlord, pretty sure he spotted this Marine here before, patrolling right on the edge, and he's decided there's very little chance my Overlord's going to get into that base. So with his information, he has literally no idea what's going on. All he knows is there's Hellions out. Now in this particular game, Polt's going for an exceptionally cheesy double factory mass Hellbat timing. Super cheesy, super crazy and out there. But Nerchio's build is so damn solid. He's just going to build 7 roaches, and not only that, he also builds a Spore Crawler here. Because he doesn't know what's happening, he builds a Spore Crawler at 4 minutes 30, and then another Spore Crawler at 4 minutes 50 at his most exposed bases. So anywhere around 4 minutes 40, 4 minutes 50, somewhere around there, putting down a Spore means that's going to be ready in time for the fastest possible Cloaked Banshee to hit. So that's very cute from him. Now from here, there's a big upgrade and tech focus in this build. Everyone's talking about how Ultras are so broken and imbalanced all the time and Zerg can't be stopped. Well, if that's really the case, then we might as well always get our upgrades very early. So in a lot of the games, we're going to see later on Nerchio actually goes for a 4-minute lair. But in this game, he just goes for a more conservative standard 5-minute lair. Let's pause the game there. Whoops. And he goes for that double Evo chamber at 5 minutes as well. So he's steadily adding his gases as well. The gas timings are all written down in the build. We'll get to that later. And yeah, he does get surprised by this big Hellbat attack. Now he had no idea this was coming until these Hellbats rocked up here. Let's look at how Nerchio responds in the heat of battle. And let's actually put this on his camera. So he's just here with his roaches, chilling. And he's like, alright man, my roaches are out in the middle of the map. You can see what he's selected down here as well as on screen, spreading a little bit of creep. He's got his lair on the way. And this is the moment, okay, where he sees, okay, that's a lot of Hellions. Now, immediately grabs the drones, sends them back to his natural, starts to put down some spine crawlers because he sees so many Hellions. He feels like, whoa, this is super all in. All I need to do is make sure I don't die. And look at that. It's so easy to even miss it on screen, but he already threw down a reactive Evo chamber and moved his queen to create a full wall off there. Because Polt, using those Hellions still in Hellion form, was really trying to keep these roaches occupied, keep them down here. But Nerchio knew these roaches need to get up there and kill those Hellbats. They need to try and save that hatchery. So Nerchio blocks off with just a very clutch Evo chamber and a queen blocking that. And then his roaches coming down there. Really nice stutter step on those roaches as well. And look at this, in the midst of the fighting, remembers to get upgrades going. Checks that his queen isn't dying to those Hellions, sees it's not, and looks still spreading creep even while the fighting's going on. The composure that Nerchio shows under the face of pressure is just so damn impressive. And that's part of what was so good here. Cancels 2 of the spine crawlers and also realizes, man, I lost my 3rd. That really hurts my economy. I got to drop a 4th base straight away as well. And that's the perfect decision. Because Polt is actually behind after this. He actually did not do enough damage there. A lot of players were saying, oh damn, like, you know, they were very worried for Nerchio, and it's very stressful to see a Zerg lose their 3rd. But you got to keep in mind, Polt built 2 factories with reactors early on. All of his tech, all of his economy is so slowed down. His 3rd command center is not even finished. Most importantly, his production and tech just sucks. Where are the engineering bays? Yeah, they're here, but 1-1 hasn't even started. Nerchio's 1-1 is halfway done. He's got, what, 2 factories? He's got a few siege tanks, but he doesn't have that many marines. It's almost no marines. He's only just starting medevac production. So Nerchio, on the other side of things, already has the infestation pit. He's already got those Evo chambers well underway. He can be taking a hive so fast. And not only that, but there's no pressure out of Polt now. These active tumors can just keep on spreading across this map completely uninterrupted now, because what does Nerchio have to worry about? 3 Hellions are the only map presence for Polt, and Polt is now forced into this ultra defensive sort of turtley position. Personally, I think Polt's biggest mistake was not going in just for the drones with those Hellions. He knew there were roaches on the map. He knew his Hellbats were going to get shreked by those roaches. He needed to try to dive in and just get some damage done. And I do kind of like how Polt, you know, he took some guaranteed damage, and I can see why he chose that. He figured there's no way he can stop me killing the 3rd base. But if he actually went and just ran in instead, like take a look at this timing one more time. There's no way Nerchio would have responded in time. Not with how late Nerchio got the information. So the Hellions think about showing themselves. Alright. If they stayed in Hellion form, they'd already be in the mineral line right now. Now this Evo chamber, yeah, that's super clutch. But what if the Hellions just dart straight on up there? I mean, even with the roaches here, yeah, the roaches would get back on top and start killing them quickly. Obviously, Hellions don't have as much hit points. You know, 135 for a Hellbat, 90 for a regular Hellion. But you'd probably be able to focus this Queen down and just YOLO one in, if the Queen even makes it into the wall in time. It would definitely make things a lot harder for Nerchio. It would have the potential to just not get enough damage done if he doesn't get in, but I think definitely worth the effort, and something which could have done a lot more. Let's turn those game sounds down just a little bit, guys. Sorry, that's a bit loud. But nonetheless, even though he will get a small economy lead or a pretty good economy situation off this, so if we fast forward, check out the economy over the next minute or two, we can see Polt's actually a little bit ahead in economy. Isn't that nice? He's only behind a few workers. He's got mules dropping. His 3rd orbital's finished before the 3rd hatch finishes rebuilding. Yay, that's awesome. So Polt's got a small income lead. The thing is, income's not everything. Economy is not everything. It's the biggest, most flexible thing you can have. But look at this. Now the 3rd base is resaturated instantly. We're going to see Nerchio's income pick back up. The 4th base is already finished. He is at 66 drones still. Nerchio, most importantly, already has that hive starting. He's already got 2-2 going. And this is one of the biggest things when you're playing this sort of very let's tech up to hive style like Nerchio does. Nerchio, he doesn't really brook any second guessing himself. He's like I'm never gonna just kind of doubt myself. I'm never gonna say, oh, maybe I should go roach upgrades this game. Maybe I should go a lot more roaches and ravagers. In Nerchio's mind, ultras are his best chance of winning. Ling upgrades are his best chance of winning. So he never goes for those ranged upgrades. Always just melee carapace. And no matter how messy the situation gets, he always says, look, I'll build up to about 20 roaches. At most 25, but almost never more than that. Because for him, these roaches aren't going to have upgrades. They're not really there to be fighting en masse. They're there to defend early on in these small battles. But as the battles start to scale up, as the upgrades start to kick in, they're just there to be Ravagers. At the time where suddenly the Terran has better upgrades, he's got a lot of Marines and tanks, Ravagers aren't as good, well, that's when he's got Infestors as well. He's got these Spellcasters which work together to just buy time. And that's really what his entire strategy, his entire army is about. It's all about buying that time. Roaches, Ravagers, just a few Infestors. Notice he never makes Pathogen Glands with these. If we check, we can see Pathogen Glands hasn't even started. Because he only ever wants to make 2 or 3 of those Infestors. Let's go back a little bit and take a look at this. And from here, all he wants to do is survive to Ultras. So we see the Hive finishes. He's going to go directly into Ultra Cavern. And the moment Chitinous Plating kicks in, that's when he can just like roll over this sort of army. Especially because the way Polt plays, so many Marines, 0 Marauders, not a single Marauder on the map. Just Marine tank. It's a hard-hitting, mobile, powerful army. But it's just not that great once Ultras come out. In fact, the Marines do almost nothing once Chitinous Plating kicks in. Nerchio, being on the ball, he's out on the map. He knows that he can't necessarily engage this army if it's all set up and spread out. But what he can do is he can half-assed engage it out on the map, force it to siege up, force it to set up, and then pull back a little bit. When it moves forward, engage again. And each time, this gives him a chance for his corrosive biles to cool down. So notice here, he's going to try and, most of the time, land corrosive biles on the medevacs and the siege tanks. These are his prime targets. So we see here, dropping a lot of corrosive biles there. Doesn't actually hit anything, but he forces Polt to pick up. He forces Polt to boost backwards with most of his medevacs and does a nice bit of damage there. His infestors now grouping up. He realizes this is just one big frontal attack. So he pulls away any other units from defending drops. Yeah, he's got a few spores and spines around, which is very nice. Spore, 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 because he knows he doesn't have any other mobile anti-air. But look at his map vision. Nerchio's got overlords placed so well all over the map, even dropping creep on the 4th. So he knows he'll see any sort of drop or counterattack well ahead in time. And he can basically just focus on defending this one frontal path. Now, keep in mind, Ultra Cavern, another 25 seconds to go. Chitinous Plating on top of that is like another 80 seconds or something like that. He's got to buy a lot of time here. He's got all these extra roaches from early. We said he went up to about 20 roaches. He's going to want to make almost every single one of those into a Ravager because he needs those corrosive biles constantly on cooldown. And he needs to just keep doing what we saw him do before. Peek forward as Terran's moving forward. Try to land your biles. Try to land your fungals. Lock down some units. Polt kind of gifts him that one. Maybe not quite the Polt we're used to seeing. Got to be critical of Polt there. It was not the best positioning on micro there. We saw a lot of these Terran armies walking into fungal bile this tournament, actually, to be honest. But it's just that same idea, you know. Nerchio is forcing Polt to be very careful. And if you can ever deplete the Marine numbers enough, suddenly, you know, the siege tanks are very afraid about moving so far forward. And keep in mind as well, if you ever go in for a pitched battle, if you're forcing the medevacs to be repositioning the tanks, the medevacs aren't healing the bio. And often, one of the biggest things you can aim for is actually the medevacs. Now, a lot of players let their medevacs all come forward like this, and they always trying to dodge corrosive bile with Marines. They're trying to dodge corrosive bile with siege tanks. They're not really thinking about their medevacs, but these medevacs, they represent so much staying power, so much endurance of the Terran army. If you take those out, the Terran army, it actually starts just slowly dying out each time it stims. It finds it really hard to reposition, to push in aggressively between your rally points. So that's actually something which, you know, Nerchio is going to look to snipe down. And notice that even though he didn't get pathogen glands, look, he's used one fungal on this infestor, but he's getting close to having another 5 fungals ready. 75 energy, so 150 energy is your key point. So the moment you make that infestation pit originally, you want to make these infestors so they can start gathering energy. And we see now Chitinous Plating, yeah, 79 seconds on that upgrade. Now, because Polt wasn't pushing in crazy hard, Nerchio felt like I've bought myself a bit of space for that previous fungal. He did a really nice thing here, and he just grabbed some of his Zerglings, and he just sent them around the other side of the map. Finds the 3rd base, not even a bunker there. Polt really trying to just dictate the pace of the game aggressively, cut some corners at home, and beautiful attack comes in, kills 5 SCVs, and just pulls back. We see here, once again, a pretty good fungal growth. Not the best corrosive biles that time around. Obviously, not every player can do it perfect. It takes a lot of micro, but you always want to aim for the medevac if you can there. That's the bigger target, and for the bigger clump of Marines in the back, rather than just spreading it out defensively in front. Nonetheless, getting these nice little trades is Nerchio. And let's take a look at this position in terms of hotkeys. Check this out. This is something I don't necessarily recommend for most players in many situations, but Nerchio actually doesn't hotkey his units a lot. I'm pretty sure he's like the F2 king, Guru 2.0. So basically, we've only got 11 units on hotkey number 3. So 11 units, that's his Ravagers and his Infestors on number 4. So his Ravagers and Infestors, he has just isolated on 2 hotkeys. He says, these are the units I need to micro back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And this is something I'm actually going to try later on today while I'm streaming ladder, where the rest of his army just chilling, no hotkeys whatsoever. It's just sitting there because each time Terran goes forward, he knows he can skirmish with it, slow it down, just using the Ravagers and Infestors. If he moves the Zerglings forward, they're all going to run in front, clumped up. They're going to take siege tank shots while not really achieving anything. So this is a really cool prioritization by Nerchio. Even his counterattack, no hotkey. All he has hotkeyed is all of his hatcheries on number 1. For some reason his hive is hotkeyed on number 2. I find that interesting. I wonder if he doesn't use camera locations. Nerchio is like an old school enough player that maybe he doesn't, which would be kind of hilarious. Definitely should be using camera hotkeys, but yeah, Nerchio is such a god at the moment. Like, his understanding is just so damn good, and I really love this prioritization. So when it does actually come to fighting, he can just F2 or click select all army button above his minimap and A-move them in. And this is just going to make it really easy for him to micro and just slow down the army. Let's check his rally points. All of his rally points are rallied here. He might even want to rally them a bit further back. I'm sure if Polt was pushing up a bit further, he'd put the rally point even further back to make sure these units, as they're rallying out, aren't engaging into this. And notice after he had this initial ball of Ravagers, this initial 3 Infestors, he doesn't really spend any more gas on that. He knows these upgrades are gas intensive, the Ultra is very gas intensive, so it's just the Zerglings coming in. But these Zerglings are really, really crap if they take a bad fight. So he's so damn patient throughout this entire series. He doesn't engage with them unless the Terran comes too far forward, and if the Terran does, he normally would like to take these rocks down and come from multiple angles, one side, and usually even flank from behind as well, because that way the siege tank splash is minimized, the tanks go down really fast. But for the moment, he's just like, I've got to buy time. I just need to buy another 30 seconds. These Lings continuing to frustrate Polt here, forcing these Marines back, buying time, forcing Polt's attention away from the front. And now Polt's going, okay, like, we got to push in. Ultras will be out soon. But he's not actually forcing his way in. And this is one of the biggest mistakes Polt made throughout this series, I think, is he committed so much to this timing. He's not transitioning into Marauders behind this. He's only just now adding Liberators. And yet he's not pushing very hard. Only now does he start to show some real sense of urgency in terms of what he's doing. And look at this micro from Nerchio. This is so sick. He keeps hold positioning the Ravagers just outside of tank range. And then if Polt comes forward far enough, he'll A-move, throw Fungal Bile, and then he'll pull back and hold position again. You can see all these Ravagers. You can tell they're on hold position if you check a replay, because you can see that button is highlighted. So just hold positioning them at the edge. And even though he loses a Ravager here, loses an Infestor there, it's completely fine because he's trading it out for Marines, he's buying time. And we see this army for Polt, so many Marines kept bleeding out. What's he got? It's such a poor army. 8 siege tanks and like what, 30 Marines? Yeah, there's more units coming, but most of these are just siege tanks. Siege tanks are okay against Ultralisks, but really they're not the unit you want. And they're kind of trash. They're just kind of trash against Zerglings as well. Like they can do decent damage versus Zerglings, but they're not the unit you want. You want them versus Banelings, you want them versus Roaches and Ravagers. So going so siege tank heavy here against what is really a super Ling and then Ultralisk focus with just Ravager infested to buy time, I think definitely an overcommitment to those tanks. But we can see why Polt ended up doing this. It's because he opened up with that double factory Hellion play. He wanted to make use of his factories. And this is the moment where Chitinous Plating's done. And Nerchio basically just rolls in. Has his unit spread out. As we said, he came from multiple sides, throws some Fungal and Corrosive Bile. Tried to hit the Medivacs. If he killed a few more of those Medivacs, I think this would have been a much more successful engagement. Throws down Corrosive Biles on Liberators. And basically crushes it. So let's watch that fight one more time. And let's keep in mind, what is Nerchio looking at this entire time? So Nerchio is actually breaking down these rocks because he's preparing for this. But he's literally just checking back and staring at this. And the moment that's like 5 seconds from finishing, he's like, let's just do it. Let's go. So right here, he looks at it and he says, okay, boys, it's about to finish. Let's do this. Go, 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 go. And he's just going to A-move his way in. Waits for that Fungal Bile combo. He is waiting to make sure his Ultras are actually in position. He's only got 1 Ultra here for now, so I can see why he waits a little bit longer. And now he goes in for it. He sees that the Marine count's just so low. The Zerglings wrap around the tanks because there's no buffer for them. The Marines can't gun them down fast enough. We see there, yeah, Corrosive Bile's trying to hit the Medivacs as well as the ground units. That's the best way to land those. And we do see some nice Corrosive Bile and Liberators as well. From there, because Polt was not preparing his Liberators until a moment ago, he's only got 2 Liberators out. He doesn't really have anything but Marine tank building. It becomes very easy for Nerchio. He sees there isn't a big Marauder count, there's not a lot of Liberators, there's not a lot of Ghosts. I can just keep attacking into this. Now, his army came in here spread out, Zerglings well in front, Ultras spread out behind that, Ravagers behind that. So that was a bad position to engage. But Nerchio knows. He's like, look at this army, man. There's no 4th base for Polt. I know I'm ahead in economy. I have a 4th. All I need to do is, look, I got 70 drones. I just need to take a 5th base up here sometime soon. Just keep making Ravagers to counter the Liberators, because they're still in such small numbers. They don't have advanced ballistics. Like, Ravagers are still really efficient, as long as the Liberator count doesn't get out of control. As long as the Liberators don't have a lot of Marine Marauder and beefy units underneath. But in these small numbers, he knows that he can just keep on trading with Ultra Ravager. And then he does what we call the Polish transition, which is at Hive Tech, they build a Spire and a Nidus Worm. And this is a really cool way to adjust. Because one of the problems you find when your opponent gets a lot of Liberators is the Ultra Ravager can't really find angles to engage anymore. Often Terran can just kind of scout where your army is, set the whole army up, say here, and you basically can't just engage into this choke point if you've got like reasonably similar armies. Even if you've got a bit of an advantage, especially if you've got a planetary down, engaging into a choke point is just a nightmare. So the whole point with the Nidus, and this is something that I call it the Polish transition, is because the laser does it as well. They can just pop Niduses wherever they want, pull units out of position, counterattack with Lings at the same time, basically just do a lot of work to spread the army out. And that's going to open up opportunities for your Ravagers to come in to snipe the Liberators, your Ultras to just swoop in on the ground and really, really spread the Terran out. So these beefy units, which are so damn good, as long as they don't have to attack into a single choke point where the whole Terran army is, it gives them those opportunities. So I really like this idea and the Spire in this situation. Now, the problem is, if Polt was going Liberators earlier and already had more of them, I do feel like the Korean transition, what's very popular in Korea right now, is a little bit better, which is where you go for 3 Vipers. Like, the moment you feel comfortable on Ultras, you got a bit of spare money, you get a few Vipers out preemptively so you can have Abduct and Parasitic Bomb. And that also works very well, because imagine they've got 6 Liberators set up here, 6 Liberators in their bio army. You come forward with your whole army and all you need to do is abduct all of those Liberators, have a few Corruptors as well to start damaging them. But even if because it unsieges them, by the time they siege back up, their army's already getting wiped out on the ground. The Liberators haven't done their job in the fight. Your Vipers go back to suck more energy. If their Liberators aren't set up in ground mode, you just drop Parasitic Bombs and run away with those Vipers. And you're just getting free damage consistently with them. And it really allows you to start getting the edge in the air war against a player who's potentially in a position to lock down the defense. A player who does potentially lock down the Nidus Worm. But as it is, in this position, Nerchio's choice is just absolutely perfect. He's just going to come in here, deny this base. Look at the spamming Corrosive Bile on the orb, on the command center. A lot of players forget that you actually can just kill buildings very quickly, even when they're floating with that Corrosive Bile. It's very hard for them to juke with a command center that fills up half the screen. They're just like, oh, change directions. The Corrosive Bile, if it's in the middle of them, is still going to hit them. So we see here just small Ling run buyers coming in from multiple sides. Nerchio, he's just vying for these angles. He's just rotating with his army. He never feels a pressure to just force his way in, but he's just looking. And seeing all this freedom, he says, yeah, I don't feel like voting for Trump today. We don't need that much freedom. So he's just going to like hold off for the moment and start getting that anti-air ready. So we see Corruptors. He just cancelled +1 flyer attack and started Carapace because he knows Carapace is the most important upgrade in ZvT. It's going to allow his Corruptors to absorb a lot more Liberator shots. And he's just going to keep denying this base. As we said before, he's taking that 5th, using a pack of Zerglings to defend drops. And, ooh, gonna keep on Corrosive Biling this command center. And seeing all these units, they're out front of the freedom zones. He knows the Liberators aren't in position, and Polt with a massive positioning error caused by the fact that Nerchio is coming in from multiple angles. He's been running those Zerglings in, dealing with those drops, and taking advantage of that moment to snipe down the command center and then run away. Seeing the Liberators were in position, he says, okay, let's just chill, back off a little bit. No need to force our way in here. And Nerchio is just very calmly closing this game out. One of the most impressive things is because Nerchio is so confident finding these angles, he's still only at 66 drones. He doesn't have this absolutely massive economy. Most players, myself included, would like to be up at 80 drones right now. Nerchio, though, whenever he has an edge, he would always much rather exercise that edge over his opponent by microing aggressively, by pushing his way in. And he does it so damn well that he really cannot be faulted for it whatsoever. taking another fight there. And look at that, Ling's even coming from behind to snipe the siege tanks. The Corruptors were killing the Liberators while his Ultras on the ground were absorbing stuff. And he's just overwhelming everything. He's going to lose a base up in the top right and a couple of drones there, but Polt's got like a few mineral patches left with almost nothing there. And whenever he can find these angles, you know, once you're in the lead against this sort of army, the Liberators feel very impotent. Because when they don't have the big scary ground army underneath, notice they're just always in the wrong position. The ground army can just move around them in circles, constantly finding the correct angle in order to abuse them. And the Liberators are just pretty much useless. So a very well played game one by Nerchio. Very good calm reactions when he was dealing with pressure early on. But just all in all, his game plan's very, very solid. And Polt just did not manage to kind of stay on par with him. I think the most impressive thing is just how much time Nerchio managed to buy from that Marine tank push. We saw that he ended up breaking it with only a single Ultralisk in his army, which shows that he was so efficient trading with the fungal bile that it looked like even if he didn't have Ultras coming out, he probably would have crushed that fight, and Polt would have been in a very, very bad way. So we're going to go into the next map, Endion, and take a look at this. Marsh says, Pig, why don't you have fly helpers always enabled? I do. So there's a couple questions there in chat. I'll answer those as we look at the start of this next game. Let's dive on in. Guys, do feel free to shout out any questions in chat. I'll answer a few more at the end of this game as well as at the end of the series. So you can see we have flyer helpers on, which is this little thing here, which tells you exactly where you want to throw your spells at, which is very useful. The only time it's not as useful is when they're off in the middle of nowhere, and then it becomes a little bit hard to see. Let's see. There's a few jokes about the fact that analysis has a dirty word in it. High-level StarCraft conversation. Aqua says, Pig, I'm pretty sure you can use players' camera hotkeys as well with Shift. Oh, really? That's cute. That's very cute. Unfortunately, I don't have them set up. Like, I'm just using the standard layout, so I can't actually check exactly that. But a really cool tip there from Aqua SC, who has pointed that out. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. All right, guys. So let's dive on here into map number 2. So this one is going to be on Invader. This is a map where a lot of Zergs really struggle with marine tank elevators because they can set up down here, down here, down here, and push into kind of the main base, to your ramp. And if you chase them, even with mutas, they can kind of just jump up behind these rocks and be really frustrating. Likewise, they can block you in and set up siege tanks up here and siege your third mineral line. So this was a map where I was very curious to see how Nerchio would play. Would he try to play mutas and just get on top of what Polt's doing? You know, would he change up his style? And what I was very interested to see is Nerchio basically does the exact same thing as he did in the previous game. The only change up, and he also does this in the game after, is basically saying, you know what? Polt did a crazy build last game. He did a crazy double factory mass hellbat timing. And Nerchio is thinking to himself, not only that, but this is Endion. You can just take your rocks down and there's no way to scout each other. There's no way to pressure each other. So it's a map where a lot of very fast drops come across the map because Terran can't rely on just running Hellions across the map. You know, they'll just run into rocks and go, oh crap, we can't do anything. So Nerchio, this game's going to go for a much faster lair. So if we take a look at the build order, just quickly, I'll put that up on screen once more. So you'll see here, it says 4-minute second gas plus lair. Now in the previous game, that was the more economic exception to the rule, where he goes 5-minute lair. So he goes for that lair a little bit later on, along with his Evo chambers. But this game, he's going to go for that lair much faster. It's going to give him a really early Overseer Scout, and that's going to be very powerful. So let's remove that build order again. We are going to see Nerchio just go up here to clear out his third base. Because he didn't send a drone out ahead of time, he realizes he has to go the third queen before he can get this hatchery down, and he's going to need to throw away a few Zerglings here. Very nice micro by Polt, being as annoying as possible, killing a few Lings, delaying the hatchery. But despite that, Nerchio has just been 100% droning, spending every single early lava on droning. Once again, he pulled 2 guys off gas when Ling Speed started, just leaving 1 mining. And as it's 3 minutes 30, we're going to see him put 2 guys back on gas right about now. Nerchio, follow your timings, bro. Oh my god. There we go. 3 guys are back on gas. Yep. 3 guys are back on gas. Roach Warren is down. We're going to see a few Zerglings chasing a Reaper out on the map. They're going to shut that down. Now keep in mind, we were talking earlier about how Nerchio loves guaranteed information. He always sees these Marines patrolling and he just says, nah, not worth it. I don't want to scout. Personally, my preference would be I would just send this Overlord up here and just come in on that angle and try to see what's going on. But Nerchio is just like, nope, screw it. Go straight for Lair, which we will see starting up now. Maybe he doesn't go for such a fast Lair this game. It should be starting very quickly. There we go. It's a little bit later this game. It starts on right on 4 minutes in game 3. In this game, it starts on 4 minutes 30. So somewhere between 4 minutes and 5 minutes, depending on each game, it's a little bit different. Once again, the one thing we can really see, though, is there's very little lava sitting idle. He does build a few extra Zerglings this game to help try and break down the rocks and deal with his tank harass, because he doesn't want to get in those positions I talked about where there's tanks on the low ground that he can't reach. So look at this. He's chasing the tank very, very well. And as soon as the tank kind of gets away, he's going to start trying to break those rocks down again as soon as he feels comfortable to do that. In the meantime, we see the double evolution chamber going down. The Roach Warren went down at that 3 minute 40 timing, exactly the same as normal. And Nerchio is just unfortunately getting his overlords pushed back a little bit. But here we go, he's chased the tank away, so immediately Zerg can say, okay, the tank's not really a threat up there, I don't even care if you take these rocks down, whatever, man. You do what you gotta do. I'm gonna break these rocks down, open up this 4th base on the north-hand side of the map. I don't want to take this base, because obviously it can just get shelled and dropped way too easily. He's just gonna take that down, Polt frantically trying to stop it, but Nerchio calmly just pulling a few Lings away to deny it, and just using a Queen to deal with this tank evac as well. Very effective, calm control from Nerchio. Always focus firing the medevac over the siege tank. That's going to be very nice. You know, I'm very curious actually. Do medevacs have a point of armor? Let's take a look. They do have 1 point of armor, same as a siege tank. So that is going to reduce the Queen damage a little bit. However, it's more effective against the Queen's ground attack because a Queen has 2 attacks against ground. Each one only does 4 damage. So that's going to go down from 8 to 6 against a siege tank, whereas the air attack does a single 9 damage attack, which goes down from 9 to 8. So that's actually a much smaller reduction against ground than it is against air. The armor modifier gets to double up there, so that's something to keep in mind. So at this point, we just see Nerchio playing his build out the way he does. He builds some extra Roach Ling because his Overseer scouted, so let's take a look at that actually. How did he know to have all this Roachling out in time? Well, he made that Overseer we were talking about and went in. He was just sticking on his very, very normal let's build 6 or 7 roaches after his first Zerglings. And then his Overseer comes in and says, what's going on? Is there a fast third command center? What's happening? He doesn't actually realize there's a fast third CC already landed. But he comes in and he sees 2 medevacs just popping out there, a bunch of barracks, and he pretty much sees those units loading up. So immediately we see more roaches on the production tab for Nerchio, and he's just going to gather everything up in the main base, try and defend these drops while continuing to drone in the background and adding those upgrades. 1-1 roach speed, and now that he's got just a little bit of gas, infestation pit goes down. Even as a drop's landing, Nerchio knows what this sort of drop is. So one of the things you'll see with really high level players is they'll recognize the difference between an all-out attack and something like this, where the timing of it is very standard. It's not really that powerful an attack. No combat shields, no upgrades. That is 16 Marines. Yeah, it's a decent number, but 1 tank, 16 Marines, 3 medevacs, it's not the end of the world. So Nerchio knows the tank isn't going to come in range, and the Marines don't want to really fight out of range of the tank. So what they're doing here is being annoying. This is not an all-out attack. This is not something Nerchio needs to focus on 100%. So even though there's units in his base, drones while the fighting's going on, infestation pit while the fighting's going on. And he starts to do some very good positioning. He does actually make an error here, so he should be leaving some of these roaches on the low ground, but he accidentally pulls them all into the main because he starts losing his units in here to the Marines. He panics and only then splits the roaches back to the low ground in order to force the retreat from Polt. This is something you always have to do in ZvT, is every time you're being pressured, you need to split your units to both the high and low ground, or you're going to end up just playing, I don't know, ring around the rosy, just run around in circles trying to catch up after the Terran. And Terran will just laugh at you. So very nice play by Nerchio. He's going to drop the 4th base the moment he pushes that back. So even during the pressure, he was already grabbing a drone and sending it up there. And notice fully saturated 3rd. His natural, fully saturated. His main, mostly saturated. And he's just going to be able to transition these workers up to his 4th and take the gases there very early on. His infestation pit's finished. So we're going to see Nerchio, being as focused on tech as he is going to start his 2-2 and his hive immediately. There we go. We're watching on normal speed there, which is why it made it look like a bit more of a delay than it was. And he starts to split his units up in order to defend drops. So look at this. He's got a drop defense squad down here in his main, and another drop defense squad up here, and then central units as well. Nerchio, a god at splitting his army into multiple sections, always being well prepared, starting to drop some spore crawlers at this point, and also getting overlord speed just so that he can start to cover the map with a bit of vision. One mistake this game is his infestors are a bit later. He's only building 2 this game, probably partly because he's building them so late. He knows they're not going to have that much time to gain value. So unlike the 3 in game 1 that he built a lot earlier and had double fungals by the time the big fighting started, this time around he's just going to have to rely a lot more on Ravagers, Zerglings, and then of course getting to the Ultralisks. There isn't going to be nearly as much fungal. So if we look at this, it's a very defensive stance from Nerchio. Some people might be like, oh man, he's just defending. You know, this is kind of boring, he's just sitting there. But you've got to keep in mind, there's so much that he's doing. Every single time Polt pulls back, like right now, these are the times where Nerchio gets a lot done. Check it out. Overlord spread. The moment Overlord speed's done, putting Overlords all over the north side of the map, so he will see any drop that's coming his way. Once he gets good enough vision on this whole map, on the whole northern side, he can pull away any drop defense from this base. And being such a high level player, just by watching his minimap, he knows he'll be able to see a drop coming and react with units in time. Likewise, he's probably going to want to eventually spread some Overlords down the bottom side, but the Viking of Polt obviously has been clearing those away, so he's not going to do that until a bit later in the game. What else is Nerchio doing? He's focusing on his macro. He's not missing a beat. He's making sure he's spending his lava constantly. In terms of drone count, he always wants to go up to a very fast 4-base gas. I think missing that gas is a little bit of an error from him. And he's just spreading creep and vying for map control. If you're playing this very fast tech style, it is relatively fragile. You don't have that many units. So it's all about Nerchio being in the right place at the right time. So every time Polt lets up the pressure, Nerchio has to use that time to get more map presence. He goes out there, tries to push to the watchtower. He needs to check, is the army all going to doom drop in his main base? If his army is just spread out in 3 parts, that's not going to be very good. So the moment Polt backs off, he's got to say, let's retake the watchtower, let's spread more creep, let's get that map vision back. And now by doing that, he's identified this army in the middle. He says, okay, you're just pushing down the middle, and he's going to pull all of his units together very shortly as this big push comes in. So we see him here trying to buy time a little bit. He's taken down these rocks as well, which has been very effective. Pulls his whole army together. And this time around, we really start to see the power of Ravagers. So we've got 5 Ravagers, but 7 more on the way. So he's going up to 12 Ravagers. He's just going to have so much corrosive bile. And even without the fungal, keep in mind, if he lands those correctly, it forces the medevac to boost. It forces the units to pick up, to retreat, to adjust where they are, and to move around the map. We're about to see him go in with a big engage once more. Now this time around, he hasn't whittled down the forces of Polt as much. So going in with this fight, quite ballsy, but just look at this position. Polt's army is fully on creep, and there was a perfect flank from both sides. A big Roach Ravager count this time around. He did go to 14 Roaches, 12 Ravagers, so a total of about 26 Roaches. That's about the maximum you'll ever see Nerchio go to when he's playing this fast hive style. And he does just end up crushing that army without the Ultralisks even being anywhere near done. So why this game why didn't he do this last game? Why didn't he just go in? Let's take this back to when he first sees that push going out, and we want to think about is what's going through Nerchio's head. So like I said, he pushes out to regain map control. He sees there's a lot of Marines here. He still hasn't seen the whole army coming out, but okay, that looks pretty frightening. And at this point, he's like, okay, there's more units there. This is the whole army. So immediately at this point, Nerchio is thinking, here comes the push. And this is a lot more decisive than the previous game. Also, he's very aware of where his own tech is. He's just started his Ultra Cavern. It's another 35 seconds until the Cavern finishes, and another 80 seconds on top of that until Chitinous Plating finishes. He knows he's got 2 whole in-game minutes of time to buy. What can he buy time with? Right now, he has 2 Ravagers, 2 Infestors without even Fungal Energy. He knows that this time around he can't buy time. He just simply can't do it. He knows that because he isn't able to create space, he isn't able to slow down Polt's push by engaging here, pulling back, engaging here, pulling back, engaging here, and then pulling back. Nerchio is going to have to just crush it with one big fight pre-Ultralisk. He doesn't have an opportunity to do it later on. So whether Nerchio was confident or not whether this was going to work, he knew that this was his only option. He knew that he was forced into a corner in terms of how hard Polt was pushing, and that he had to take this fight. He realized that's why he's spending all of his gas on Ravagers, because he knows, unlike last game where he's got 1,000 gas in the bank at this point, he's just like, nah, we just need to have the best army possible right now. Zerglings, Ravagers, 2 more drones that shouldn't be building. That should all be units right now. But obviously that just happened in the midst of everything, and he's kind of realizing, okay, like what are we going to do? We just need to fight. He's also very aware that even though his tumors are cleaned up, he's still got creep almost to the watchtower. This narrow path of creep here is actually going to make Zerglings, Roaches, Ravagers so much more effective. So he does try to buy a little bit of time here. He's trying to pump out these units, and he really does want to wait for 2-2. So that's something which he's really got on his mind as well. His 2-2, once again, is ahead of his opponents, and that's a key part of Nerchio's style. His upgrades are always ahead. However, he realizes this is getting in so far, he's still got 30 seconds to wait, which is a long time when Terran's pushing in this hard and fast, and if he waits that long, the creep spread will be gone. So Nerchio makes the judgment call, says, look, we're both 1-1, we're on equal upgrades, I've got the units spread, and all he needs to do here is nothing fancy. It's all about just spreading his units out ahead of time and then doing one big A move. And all he does in the fight is just throw down Corrosive Biles and 2 Fungals at the very beginning of the fight on the exposed Marines here and here. And just Corrosive Biles spread out across this army. But we see it was simply the fact that he just had good numbers, good macro, and a really good angle. And the army, because it was on creep so deeply, just got surrounded and overwhelmed. A lot of players might be like, man, Zerg's bullshit. If they look at that fight, they might be like, man, this is so ridiculous. But let's keep in mind, he was fully on creep. The fact is Nerchio is teching so incredibly fast, and that's forcing Polt to walk into bad positions where tanks really don't want to fight. The tanks want to abuse a ledge. They want to abuse positioning. But even though if these rocks are up, there's great positioning, if they're not up, this was a wide open area with multiple easy attack avenues for Nerchio to come in on. Polt was not dropping a lot at the same time. Polt was not trying to counter to multi-prong and pull Nerchio out of position. He made it quite easy for Nerchio to actually come in and just take the fight that he wanted. So definitely Polt must have just thought, I've got the numbers to overwhelm there. But he simply didn't. Nerchio was too solid for him this game. I do feel like Nerchio was just outplaying him on a raw build order, refinement, and execution level. So perhaps that's part of why some of these engagements did look so damn easy for Nerchio. Nonetheless, his game plan was just very, very good. And we see here, after that fight, he's still got all the Ravagers alive, great anti-liberator in small numbers, and now he's adding the Ultras. He's adding a few more drones, adding the 5th base, and once again, he's got the amazing spread of his units. The drop in the main gets cleaned up by some Roaches and Zerglings and the Spore Crawlers. These drops come up here, and they run into masses of Fungal and Corrosive Bile, and such. That's basically a game-winning Fungal there, where, you know, Polt's last chances of counter-attacking and pressing off on around the map are just pushed out there. Nerchio comes in from the north here, lands some more Fungals, his Ultras get on top, and Polt doesn't have a 4th up against a 5-base Zerg who's got far better tech than him. 3-3 is on the way for Nerchio as well. Does he have adrenal glands? No, he doesn't. He doesn't focus on adrenal glands because he knows in the big fights you very rarely actually get to use it. But he will, if he has the excess money, get that as well. He just was a little bit shy of the money this game. And Polt has to type GG. Alright. So we're seeing here, I mean, it's such a clean series for Nerchio in many regards, but you've really got to give it to him in the details. He's just kind of putting his vision out on the map all over the place. He's constantly keeping his units split up, and we do actually see the power of not hotkeying your army. Like, he just doesn't hotkey his army at all, and I think this is potentially a reaction to the fact that there's so much drop play against this, and it's all so much about manually controlling units in different areas of the map. And he just says to himself, he's like, screw it, man. We're only hotkeying Ravagers and Infestors. This is what I'm doing. It doesn't mean you should necessarily just do what Nerchio does. Keep in mind, StarCraft is a game where it's all about understanding what's going on. So let's dive into map number 3. So yeah, never just blindly copy something. I think there's far too many players in StarCraft who just want to do something because someone else does it and they make it look good. What you should do is you should always look at it and say, that's a cool option. That's something which can really work in that scenario executed like that. You should never just automatically copy it and do it. Keep in mind, Nerchio has amazing mouse accuracy, really great mouse control and everything. So it's kind of like when people are like, Life doesn't hotkey his units a lot of the time. Like, you know, he can just do this. And it's like, yeah, that's cool and all, but you really need to be a special sort of player to pull that stuff off. So, so that works out really well. So while we're just in the early game of this game 3, we are going to take a few questions. So Cal Rawley says, Polt has struggled against this composition for the last few times I've seen him play. What does Terran do against this build apart from slowly die? Is it a lack of aggression? Building the wrong units, or is there something else that's missing? And that's a really good question, and I do normally not look at things just from one player's point of view. But basically, there's a lot of different ways you can play it. But what we saw in this series, and what I think we saw from Polt throughout, I just crossed during and throughout this tournament. We saw Polt, I think, after his first series against Strange, and then like partway through his second series, he seemed to take an assessment of how he was playing and say, like, I don't think I'm playing that well right now. That's my opinion. I don't know 100%. I'm not that close with Polt that I asked him or anything. But yeah, he seemed to say to himself, like, I'm not actually playing that well right now. I need to do something special. I need to catch my opponent off guard. And I feel like he basically said, like, all right, let's just throw the kitchen sink at my opponent. Against the laser on Arena, he did a 3-Rax bunker rush into like a very, very delayed natural, like, it was basically a 1-base Marine tank timing follow-up, like, and it worked out really well. It was very nice, very nicely executed. He then did a 2-port Banshee in game 1 of this series against Nerchio, who opened up with double factory Hellbat. So cheesy, and that gave up so much power in that game. You know, he just didn't seem confident in playing a more standard style. In this game, we're actually going to see him do double starport. So it was one of these things where I think Polt definitely just wasn't quite performing up to the standard he is used to. I think he was playing pretty great. Even, I mean, for like 2 years now, people have been like, Polt's not in the best shape. He's not looking that good right now. But he's such a smart and intelligent player, and normally he manages to choose the right builds and throw his opponent kind of off balance. And he definitely managed to do that to Nerchio and Katowice. But here at Tours, Nerchio just seemed to have the answers to everything. He seemed to be prepared, and he was never completely caught off guard by Polt's builds. I definitely think hitting a strong Marine Marauder tank push right before Ultras come out is one of the best ways to play. There's also a very popular style where players just go pure bio, no siege tanks, and they just overwhelm. And usually it looks really gross. We saw Bomber do it versus Dark in Pro League, where the bios, the fungals were ripping apart the bio, and it was like, well, this is disgusting. Like, get out of this game, Bomber. You're playing Dark. Don't you know who you're playing? And then Bomber's like, well, actually, I have 300 more Marines and Marauders, and just like the Infestors ran out of energy, the Ravagers ran out of cooldown. There just wasn't enough meat on the ground, because it is a relatively fragile style from Zerg. got in there right before Ultras finished and just wrecked Dark. And since then, we've seen players like Uthermal using that same style to great effect against Snoot. So definitely the pure bio, like let's do a nice efficient opening and overwhelm of just overpowering numbers and macro is very powerful. Multi-prong drops are absolutely amazing. Yes, Nerchio defended well these games, but you know what? Polt never really got into, let's go into fast drops and keep dropping all over the place. He was always very tank focused with his drops. He never opened up heavy bio multi-prong. He never kept that multi-prong going the whole game. There was always a moment where he overcommitted to the aggression, or he kind of just stopped multi-pronging and started just going in one direction. And it allowed Nerchio always to focus all of his energy, all of his focus in his micro in one specific area. Likewise, once Polt was committed in that one direction, Polt was often very, very slow at forcing his way into Zerg, forcing his way into Nerchio's narrow defensive window. And it was like, you've got to get in there right before Ultras pop. But game after game in this series, we see him just sit outside Nerchio's base. Nerchio has next to no units. He gives Nerchio time to build 3 or 4 rounds of units, and then he starts pressing in a bit harder, just as Ultras are popping, just as Nerchio has a perfect flank setup. So it definitely felt like there was a lot of very small things. It's not necessarily about an entire change up of how he plays the mid game. It's just about doing small things differently. Maybe doing a bit more multi-prong, maybe making a few more Marauders mixed in, maybe just pushing in harder with his army. And I think 100% his openings just didn't go that amazingly. Now in this final game, I think a lot of players were probably pretty mad looking at this game, Terran players that is, and because it looked gross. Like this game, it looks like Polt's actually way ahead. Now keep in mind, these Banshees, he goes 2 Port Banshee this game. He hides a second starport in the back, he builds 4 Cloaked Banshees, and he actually doesn't do that much damage with these for the investment. He kills 4 drones originally, and then he comes in here, and Nerchio actually makes a really big mistake. So Nerchio does what I call the lazy man's drone pool. And basically, actually, you know what? So someone said you can select a player's camera hotkeys. They don't seem to be working. So I'm relatively confident that Nerchio doesn't use camera hotkeys, but I'm going to actually send him a tweet and ask him. We'll see after this. But anyway, basically, he should have just ran these drones here. Just click them there. He's not going to be getting rid of these Banshees anytime soon. So if you've ever got someone poking in, but you know you've got the answer and you're going to push them back, you can just grab the drones, click to the other side of the mineral line like Nerchio did, to pull the drones away temporarily from danger. But if you don't have the answer, that's the lazy man's pull. Because 2 seconds later, they're going to bounce back to those mineral patches. And if your counter to them also has to run away because you don't have enough units, suddenly we lose an extra 13 drones on those 4 we lost. And you might think, oh man, that's pretty huge, but that's actually not enough. 4 Banshees? This is what you got to remember about how Terran production works. It takes a long time to build up. You need a lot of add-ons. What are you going to do with 2 starports? Well, cool, you get to skip a reactor and build double medevac still. Like, yeah, it'll help later on as well if you want to go double reactor, 4 liberator at a time. That's a big macro play though. That's way down the line. For the moment, you might be like, yeah, he's got his infrastructure up. Like, Polt's in a good spot. It's 6 minutes 30. If Polt did a more macro-oriented build, for instance, on the previous map, he at 6 minutes 30 had 16 Marines with stim finished, combat shields on the way, a siege tank, and 3 medevacs, and they were harassing and getting value. What's he got this time? He has a siege tank and 9 Marines. He does have 2 medevacs out, but can't really put any pressure on with these units. They're all quite late. So it's like, yeah, you've done some great damage, but the problem is the damage is over. You invested a lot into it, now your production's behind. Nerchio should be ahead. The reason Nerchio is not is actually Nerchio simply screwed the pooch on his macro. And this is always great to see a player as good as Nerchio do this, because it gives us confidence in our own play. We're like, hey, he makes big mistakes too. The problem is these Banshees are over. Nerchio has the response. He has 5 Queens and Overseers. He can pull those to the front. His creep will be more or less uninterrupted now. He can just tech up and do whatever he wants for the next few minutes while getting these incredibly fast upgrades, still about 30 seconds ahead of Polt, and a really fast infestation and hive. So the Banshees have not done enough damage, really. They've been okay, but they definitely haven't put Polt ahead in any way. What has put Polt ahead has been Nerchio screwing up his build order this game. So this is kind of cool for us to look at to see, hey, even the best players make big mistakes once in a while. Let's take a look. So we talked earlier about the build order. I'm going to show it on screen one more time. I've been showing it on screen every game, so let's do that again. So I just wrote the opening up there. Take a screenshot if you want that, that list. Obviously, it's just the basic notes. That's generally the build order. The layer is a bit adjustable. It can be anywhere between 4 and 5 minutes, but in this game it will be right on 4 minutes. So let's turn that build order off. Just wanted to hover over a dark area of the map so you guys could see that. Now what we're going to see this game is well-timed third base, nice and early third base, going up to 4 queens after that, dropping his Roach Warren right on 3 minutes 40. Everything's looking great so far. He's looking really good. Okay, cool. Yeah, this is great. Second gas, normally on 4 minutes. Yeah, he grabs it slightly earlier this game. That's fine. 10 seconds earlier. No one cares about that. Putting 3 drones on gas already. Already, this is a little bit uncharacteristic. I mean, they were only long distance mining, like 3 to a patch here. Still a bit inefficient. They would be better off mining on these further away patches than they would be going on gas 15 seconds before it actually finishes building. So a bit of an error there from Nerchio. Nothing too crazy, nothing to call home about. Where does the big mistake happen? So I was watching this replay before and I was really stunned here. Here's where it starts falling apart. So basically what happens now is Nerchio doesn't spend his lava. The most important thing you need to prioritize in every game is always just spending your drones, building drones constantly. And here's where Nerchio starts to slip up. He has 6 lava available. And let's take a look at this. 14 lava available. He's just not spending his drones. He's made a very fast layer, which already cuts into your money to build drones. So he should be focusing doubly as much on building those workers constantly. 14 lava? Okay, I mean, his Roach Warren's finished. Maybe he wants to save money to build roaches. Nope, building 4 drones, still 10 lava. Nerchio made a massive mistake this game with his macro. Build 6 roaches now? That's good, okay. He's got enough money to do that. All right, it was just a hiccup. It wasn't the end of the world. But look at this, Spore Crawlers going down so damn fast. Now, you never need Spore Crawlers this early. This was Nerchio's 1 game away from winning. He's in a very important tournament setting. So he's kind of freaking out just a little bit in terms of that. I definitely feel like those spores are a bit too early. Maybe a pro player can PM me afterwards and be like, you're wrong, man. That Banshee could have hit earlier. What's triggered this? Why is he a bit distracted? Why is he a bit freaked out? Let's take a look at Nerchio's scouting information. So that Overlord gets sniped down. Actually, was that the factory floating over there? Because that in itself... Yeah. First of all, he sees the factory floating and the Marines killing his Overlord. And he's like, what the frack? Shouldn't your factory be building units? And he's only seen a single Hellion run out the front as well. So he's already like, what the hell are you doing? Nerchio then is going to come in with this Overlord, and he's going to say to himself, all right, what can we see? Starport with a tech lab. He's like, okay, you're doing something weird. He also probably watched the series versus Laser, probably knows about 2-port Banshee. However, he does drop these spores a bit too early. The earliest, like I said, you ever need spores is 4 minutes 30, and often you can get away with them as late as 4 minutes 50. So he starts putting money into these spores very early. And like we said earlier, that's a lot of money that's not going into constant drone production. So we're now also seeing Evo chambers going down. Now in his previous games, he often dropped the Evo chambers when he was at 75 to 80 supply. It was only about 10 seconds later in the game time because he hadn't built the spores, because he hadn't built a full 5 queens. He hadn't had to invest as much in that anti-air, which meant he'd built more drones. However, Nerchio potentially making the mistake of looking at game timer rather than the situation in the game and saying, hey, this is the time I put my Evos down in a few seconds. Yeah, it won't hurt to put them down early. The truth of the matter is, though, it will hurt because that money should be going into drones. This lava stagnating, 12 lava across 3 hatcheries is absolutely massive. And that's actually a huge mistake on Nerchio's part, which is what makes this game so difficult. I strongly feel that he kind of psyched himself out a little bit when he was thinking about the option of a potential 2-port Banshee or whatever weird build he was expecting. And it's only at this point where he does confirm with the fast overseer. He says, oh, okay, it is 2-port Banshee. And he starts to react a bit more. But his economy is already so weak. So even though, like I said, he defends the Banshee reasonably well, like he has the information, he's very well prepared in terms of defense, he's handicapped his economy a little bit too much. And he's actually down on workers against Terran, which should never happen at this point in the game, unless the Terran's been putting a lot of hurt on. Keep in mind, there's been no Hellion aggression. There's been no pressure on the ground at all up until now. So yeah, the roaches were a little bit superfluous. I am a little bit confused why he built 6 roaches when he saw the factory floating very early on. Maybe he kind of saw the factory floating just after it started the roaches. That would be understandable. But the combination of that and not spending his drones definitely set Nerchio further behind from his stellar macro in the previous 2 games. Combined with the drone losses here, and Nerchio does end up with a much weaker economy than he would have liked. So it was really cool to see that even the Godshio can make a huge mistake like that once in a while. But what's even more impressive is that he doesn't give a crap and he still just comes through and just starts crushing this game. His 4 queens just push back those banshees. He's spreading creep out. He's taking this 4th base. Whenever you're in these spawns, you have to take this 4th base. It's the easiest to defend because there is a big, wide open area in front. It's also hard for Terran to get their army over here. So normally Terran just pushes through the middle. And it's still a pretty wide open area with ramps, with flanking areas on either side of it. So even though you're very close to the Terran, you don't have a lot of space to work with, the benefit of the gold minerals, taking this 4th and then this 5th away from them is definitely what you want to do. It's very difficult to defend the 5th up here. It's very far away. It's just a matter of trying to maintain good map control. And keep in mind, Nerchio, because the Banshees didn't do that much damage, because he had the queens out, look at his creep spread. He's just spreading creep. This is what Polt's sacrificing with both game 1 and this game, with these build orders. He keeps letting Nerchio get creep spread into the middle of the map, and Nerchio then has really good vision, and he doesn't have to really worry about a frontal attack because he's got plenty of warning of that coming in. He's already got infestors out this time, remember, going for the 2 infestors the moment his infestation pit finished, straight up to Hive and 2-2. And he's just going to be very well set up. Overlords on the left-hand side of the map. I would even prefer him to be holding the watchtowers as well, to be honest, because I feel like if you spot a drop here, you don't really have time to get back into your main. Remember, it's very awkward to get back from the front to your main base. So something you should always do on this map is break down these rocks just to make that trip a little bit quicker. Something so many players forget because this map is still relatively new. And that's why this drop of Polt starts to do a bit of damage. Already, Polt is up 17 supply. They're both on equal work account, which means a big income lead for Polt. So Nerchio has to be incredibly efficient here. Now, very good pullback with the Zerglings, realizing a few Zerglings on their own, funneling into that many Marines will just get shreked. Waits for the Ravagers and Roaches to catch up before engaging. Very calmly pulled his drones away. So really all he loses there is a Spore, 2 drones, and an Extractor. So even though it was a very annoying position for Nerchio, he mitigates the damage very well. One issue we can see is Polt has a huge friggin' army, and he's still not pushing onto the creep at all. He knows the style Nerchio is playing, but he's not pushing, or at least multi-pronging. While dropping there, why not do another drop over here on the left and stim into that gold base while the units were up in the main? He's given time for Nerchio to just split, isolate this single drop. I mean, Polt dodges, and that's great. But definitely I think Polt could have been more aggressive because he knows the bare bones, low economy style, low army style, high tech that Nerchio is playing. So Polt, while playing well, potentially not well enough, he really needs to push in here. And because there's so much creep, that is a big part of what slows his push down. Look at this. Polt is so afraid to push his whole army onto creep. He saw what happened on Endion. His whole army just got beaten, even though there weren't ultras out. He just got crushed because he was fully on creep. Now this time around, the creep is still out there. And potentially, and this is only occurring to me now, but maybe it was just the fact that the creep slowed these pushes down too much every game. Because this army is bloody frightening, man. Let's look at that army supply. He's up about 15 army supply. What have we got? 5 Ravagers, 7 Roaches, and 46 Zerglings, and 2 Infestors. He's got 1 fungal growth between his whole army. He doesn't have anything in the main to defend the drops, except the 2 spores. But luckily for him, Polt drops on top of the spores. There's the creep spread here, and Polt's too afraid to push in. Potentially, if Polt just stimmed in and just pushed his whole army up to like here, he may have just overwhelmed Nerchio right now. But with Kindness plating halfway done, 5 Ultralisks on the way, Polt's just been a little bit too hesitant, and he's not going to be able to quite close this game out. We see here, very nice fungal there. You know, Polt going forward with just little bits of his army. He keeps giving these opportunities for Nerchio to take those those trades. The Banshees, they should be up here killing these units. There's nothing to counteract them right now. The Banshees could be chasing down those units. The drop in the main kills a few drones, but the medevacs die, the ultras pop out and just clean it up. And now he starts spreading these marines out, but the tanks are still so far back. He's just bleeding out so many marines as well. But his army is still very scary. There's no chitinous plating yet. But that timing is closing in 20 seconds. And we just see Polt taking a little bit too long to force the engagements. Chase with those Banshees. Chase those units down. Move the whole army over to the left-hand side. But once again, he's just waiting and waiting. And Nerchio, in this game, despite the macro slip-up, is so damn patient. Once again, only Ravagers, and he had Infestors on hotkeys, but I think he's lost all his Infestors now. Yeah, he has. So just the Ravagers on a hotkey, he's just using those to zone out, buy time, take these little engages versus these small squads of Marines that keep coming forward. And now, Kindness Plating's done. F2, A move. He's just bided this time so perfectly. He kept pulling back those units on multiple sides, and he's just going to overwhelm this army and get an incredible, incredible position. Very patient play from Nerchio. Definitely some errors from Polt these games, but I think Nerchio just puts so much pressure on for Polt to do something out of the ordinary, to do something weird and special. And in the follow-up to that, you know, those weird openings, I don't feel like Polt's follow-ups were as refined as when he's doing his more typical plays that he's more practiced with. From here, Nerchio gets a really sick lead. Even though he's only at 55 drones at home, he just manages to kill the army so cost efficiently. Because same as the previous games, there are no Marauders. The first 3 Marauders are just beginning to build now, so those Marines, worthless against anything but the Zerglings. The Banshees do not have attack upgrades. Now if you've got attack upgrades, Banshees can still do a bit of damage to Ultras, but keep in mind, right now we've got +2 Carapace and Kindness Plating, 7 armor, versus a Banshee that does 2 12 damage attacks. That means each Banshee shot is only doing 10 damage. It's still going to take 50 Banshee shots to kill an Ultralisk, not even including the regen. So you've just got too many units that aren't doing damage. We start to see Liberators and tanks here. But keep in mind, what a lot of players are doing as well, even with that first push up here, if we go back and look at that, a lot of players, we'll go back a little bit more, actually are bringing 2-4 Liberators with this push. Realistically, how much does having 6 or 8 medevacs help your army? Not that much. We see here 8 medevacs for Polt. Only 4 in the main army. Yes, it's great to position your tanks around, but there's a big hiccup in his medevac in his starport production here. He's already got 2 more medevacs back at home, 8 in total, and he's building more medevacs. Imagine if he had Liberators, even just 2 or 4 Liberators joining the fight at maybe 10 minutes. Let's take a look. So imagine we've got 2 Liberators. They come up, they set up Freedom Zone, Freedom Zone. He's got Banshees to chase off any infestors, any corrosive bile, any infestors. The Liberators with tanks covering them already mean that if you've got the tanks and Marines spread right around underneath, the Ravagers are going to lose a lot of units each time they come forward to bile. Suddenly, it hits the point his Chitinous Plating finishes. Oh shit, it's Zerg's heyday. But what if he also had some tech labs? What if he suddenly had 2 more Liberators coming just as Chitinous Plating finishes? He's got 4 Liberation Zones. What if he's got 3 more tech labs already done, rather than having unlimited reactors? Yeah, so these barracks, what if they added some tech labs a little bit earlier? I think 4 reactors early on, you know, that's just Polt style. It gives him a lot of maneuverability. I can definitely get behind that, but queuing up some Marauders out of that single barracks earlier on, adding tech labs on these extra 6th and 7th barracks a bit earlier. I think this would actually give Polt's army the ability to play this out. The way Polt was playing this with just Marine tank, with just medevacs, and whatever leftover Banshees he had from earlier, he needed to push in harder, faster, because the moment Ultras are out, his army is very, very weak against that. He played a very polarizing style where it's like, you're very mobile, you're very strong, but the moment Ultras are out, your army is utter crap. So I definitely think Polt needed to adjust a little bit more here. Didn't quite take advantage of the opportunities that he needed to. In each game, he kept sending his Marines too far out in front and like losing them without the siege tanks fighting. He was a little bit afraid to overcommit, which maybe was the right call. But if he did that, he needed to have more of a transitionary plan. The last thing I want to really look at in this game, because I think this is a great example where we said Nerchio's on the back foot, he's made a lot of mistakes, is how does Nerchio deal with aggression? And we've talked about this a little bit in terms of what he does, but let's look at how he does it. in terms of let's watch Nerchio's camera for the next 2 minutes of this game. And let's get in his mindset. Ultra Cavern starting, as just finished, Chitinous Plating starting, 2-2's about to finish. There's that drop on the top that's been annoying. He's just put down a few spores up there, and now we see it. Okay, he's just going forward, just manually boxing units, and what you're going to see is Nerchio will stare at the front the entire time. He's only macroing using his hotkeys. Look at that, goes forward, throws down a fungal and a few corrosive biles, actually sniped a siege tank there. He pulled back knowing the tank was going to die, and look at this, just manually spreading those units out. Every now and then, if you watch the bottom bar, you'll see him selecting his hatcheries and building a few units with his eggs. Let's pause quickly. Where are his rally points? So he's actually just changed his rally points to his main in response to that drop. And he's boxed a whole bunch of units and sent them back up there, as well as letting his reinforcements deal with it. Because he's pulling so many units away from the front, he knows Polt's going to be able to push a bit further forward, so he's just pulling his units further and further back here. And he's always pulling them back on multiple sides. His Ultra there goes too deep, as well as his Lings on the left. He's definitely falling apart in the chaos just a little bit, taking a bit more damage than he needs to. He's realizing, just need to buy time, we just need to buy time. At this point, he's grabbing his queens into his army, because he realizes he doesn't have any anti-air, so he pulls the queen from his third into his army. We can see he's controlling these units. He's looking, where is Polt moving? Where is Polt moving? I need to... Okay, Chitinous Plating is done. It's time. We've hung on long enough. You can just see the absolute skill, though, in boxing, pull back. Boxing, pull back. Boxing, pull back. Over that last minute. Just very calm under pressure. And this game could have ended up very differently. Polt was really trying to bait him into attacking him. If at any moment Nerchio panics here and doesn't just calmly go, you guys move there, you guys move there, you guys move there. Box, click, box, click, box, click. Fungal, corrosive bile, or fungal A move. Moment those units are dead, pull back. Pull back. Every now and then he's just tapping his hatchery hotkey, building some units, and he's doing it so damn well. So really calm, collected play from Nerchio, despite, I think, making a pretty big economical error this game. The play was fantastic, more than enough to take down Polt in decisive fashion, and I think definitely a very big win for Nerchio, getting his revenge for Katowice, and especially after Polt's kind of fun taunting of him before the game, it had to feel good. So let's go through and watch the post-big engagement phase. So after he wins this engagement, clears out the whole ground army, you could see he was down like 40 supply there, but because the army is just so bad against the Ultras, it's not going to do too well. Nerchio comes in, starts engaging the army, and keep in mind he's not just A-moving, I mean he is pretty much just A-moving, but he's manually trying to make sure his Ultras are focusing on the right things. You'll see here he's constantly, okay, they move to the high ground, he's going to grab his units and click them up here. He's clicking them. Going to keep dropping corrosive biles, but the moment this looks like it's a really bad fight, if there was even just 1 or 2 liberators here, Nerchio never would have been able to do this counter-attack. Like, he just doesn't have anything to kill a couple liberators. The moment 2 liberators arrive, he has to evacuate. So imagine, even if just 2 liberators popped out 30 seconds earlier, Nerchio's whole day is ruined. Polt very slow on his liberator transitions in these games, and that did give Nerchio a big window to get stuff done. Respreading creep is beautiful. That's one of the most important things that Nerchio is doing here. A great, great creep respread. Only 60 drones. He's got very little mining in the main. His natural's on the correct saturation, because past 11 minutes, half the mineral patches run out in the natural. Third base fully saturating, fourth fully saturated, and he's going to go take a 5th base now as well. For the moment, once again, Nerchio realizes he did a lot of damage. He realizes there's no 4th base. He scouted this out, right? And he's got to say to himself, you, once again, are not going to have a big fleet of Liberators out. You're not going to have a whole lot of Ghosts out. I can just keep making Ravager Ultra with these couple of Infestors. He rebuilt a few Infestors. And this army is going to keep trading effectively against you because it's at this low economy point. Keep in mind, if Polt had a bigger economy, had a 4th established, was already building up that Liberator count, getting Liberator range or Ghosts or something, there's a good chance Nerchio changes up his composition, goes to Vipers and Corruptors, goes to something a little bit more long-term. Notice this game, he doesn't go for the Nidus Worm. Now, why doesn't he go for the Nidus Worm? He just doesn't have the money. He doesn't even build the Spire this game. He's just so short on cash because he was taking such a beating early on. He's just sticking on these core units. And technically, if you think about it, Ultras can beat ground, Ravagers can beat air, as well as be useful versus ground. So he does have his answer to everything. And in this low economy situation, he doesn't have to worry about high-tech units just blossoming out suddenly for Polt. We see Polt going for the Desperation Thors. Thor's not the worst unit against Ultras by any means. They're actually a decent unit. But Liberators do tend to be a little bit more well-rounded. Of course, Thor's not weak against Ravagers at all. They don't really care about Corrosive Bile nearly as much as Liberators do. So I'm not really one to judge the style. I know a lot of people on Twitter were saying, you know, oh yeah, you go and build Thors when you feel like you're just going to win a game and, you know, you could build any unit, so you might as well build Thors. Or, you know, you're winning a game and you feel like throwing it away. That's the two times when you build Thors. I don't know if that's really the case. I think they're kind of decent. Is it worth the cost? Are there better options though? My instincts tell me yes, but I don't really have any analytical big engagements of fair fights to show which way is best. Polt's just trying to hang on, trying to secure that 4th base. Nerchio is just looking for the angle. So same as we saw in Frozen Temple, he's looking for the angle to fight. He's looking for the angle where the Liberators aren't set up, where he can just come in, land a few Corrosive Biles, trade, say, a Ravager for a couple Liberators. If he can do that and just keep finding it, the moment he finds a good fight, he'll take it. He sees the bio exposed, comes in with the fungal, lands a few Corrosive Biles, lands a very nice fungal on the medevacs, but he already used his Corrosive Biles on the bio, so wasn't able to land the money hit. Is going to land... Oh, he missed it. He whiffs the fungal there. Does land some nice defensive Corrosive Biles, though. Notice this very good back and forth micro out of Nerchio. He's just very calmly, always pulling back. He doesn't just kind of A-move into the big situations. He just constantly flanks around looking for the right engagement. At the same time, defending his base up here, finally starting that Spire behind this, knowing he's going to need to add Corruptors. You know, he needs something that just deals steady, consistent damage to these Liberators. Ravagers over time aren't going to cut it. And because he's getting his 5th base established, you know, he's probably going to maybe squeeze a few more drones out. He knows that opportunity might come very soon. He does come in here, and notice he sees, oh, the Liberator zones, there's only 2 of them. Liberators are just kind of chilling. Most of the units are exposed for this pretty big attack avenue. Spread some Zerglings onto the high ground, because he wants to take out the Thor and the tank up there. And knowing he's got the overwhelming numbers, there's just not that many units to Polt. Judges it well, and rolls over the top of everything. Very good Corrosive Bile shots on those Liberators. Now, even though a lot of pro gamers use Rapid Fire, I don't know if Nerchio does, but you don't use Rapid Fire against Liberators or single siege tanks. You basically just go button click, button click, button click. So you go Corrosive click, Corrosive click, Corrosive click, C click, C click, C click, C click, C click, C click. Whereas if you're in a certain situation where you just want to empty all of your Corrosive Biles, then you can just hold down C and just wave your mouse like a magic wand as long as you've got that Rapid Fire on, and from there everything is absolutely splendid. We do see a very nice counter drop from Polt. Too little too late, unfortunately. 4th base is still lifted. Drop kills the 5th. He's lost 34 SCVs though. His naturals forfeit. This drop's going to get cleaned up. Ultra's on top of it. Queen's on top of it. Ling's still in the back of the natural, and Polt does type GG. Well played. Very nice play by Nerchio this series. I think very inspirational to see him take down Polt in that manner, and a really good, interesting way to see someone who really doesn't ever want to mass the roaches. He's always beelining towards the Ultras. Even when his opponent's very aggressive, he's like, nah man, no range upgrades. We're going melee, carapace all the way. And it worked out very damn well. A few people in chat just saying, no, actually it is just a move, Pig. I mean, there's obviously an A move at the start, as all engagements are, but there is a bit more to it than that, especially with the Liberators out. It takes very good micro to calmly land those triple Corrosive Biles on everything. Definitely, though, Polt not finding his timing windows, not quite able to get in there, and I think we can learn a lot just from the calm way Nerchio is constantly just fighting against those pushes, and the way he kind of manually controls everything is also a very unique way of defending. Rather than using, say, a set hotkey up here to defend drops or anything like that, it's a very old school style of mechanics, something where I assume he doesn't use the steel hotkeys, because the steel hotkeys are a slightly more efficient way of doing that. But Nerchio showed that you don't necessarily need to, and you can still perform at an absolutely amazing, making it to the finals of a championship level. So yeah, that's the end of the PiG Daily for today, guys. Shout out any questions in chat and we will answer them. I didn't see any really good questions right now. So I think we will finish up the VOD here. If there's a few really good questions, we'll extend the VOD, but otherwise we're just going to finish it up. So anyway, guys, thanks for hanging out. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Thanks for hanging out. Goodbye.